Beyonce completely mad, crazy, insane, or sane to consider having a home birth with her twins? I'm Tricia Murray from the Birth and Baby Academy, and I work with women to support them to have easier, smoother, and hopefully quicker birth experiences. So today we're talking about Beyonce and her home birth with her twins, something that really nowadays is very, very unusual. Home births anyhow are very rare, but home births with twins are almost unheard of now. But her home birth is slightly different, and that's partly because she's got her £1 million birthing suite. And I just want to read out what's in that birthing suite. So, in that birthing suite, she has got medical equipment, including incubators, which are often very needed for twins, because 50% are born before 36 weeks spontaneously, or 37 weeks I think it is. She's got an entire professional neonatal wing, which has been shipped into their 100,000 a month rented property as they plan the ultimate in home births. She's got a high-tech kit, and what else has she got? And it's all about privacy and safety, which I really like, and we'll get onto that in a bit more detail towards the end. So it's really exciting that she's doing this. And whilst I think many people are saying, well, she's really created like a mini maternity suite, she's not really planning a home birth, she's not really under the whole sort of philosophy of home birth, or doesn't really necessarily, like many other women would plan their home births. They might, have a birth pool, they might have, an independent midwife or doula to support them, not a whole maternity suite. Hers is slightly different. But I think when I researched her last birth and heard about her last birth, what I realised was actually, I think that she had such an amazing first birth that I think she wanted to replicate that with, obviously I've never spoken to her, so I don't really know, and I'm just making assumptions, but I think she wanted to replicate that with the twins. So this is what she said about her first birth, which is beautiful. She said, I felt very maternal from around 8 months, and I thought I couldn't become any more until I saw the baby. But it happened during my labour, because I had a very strong connection with my child. I felt like when I was having contractions, I envisaged my child pushing through a very heavy door. And I imagined this tiny infant doing all the work. So I couldn't think about my own pain. We were talking, I know it sounds crazy, but I felt a communication. So I think really what she was doing, what she's trying to do, is trying to replicate that really physiological normal birth. And she probably knows that is very hard to achieve within a medical setting where she might have no control. So I think Beyonce's decision to have a home birth is actually a very, very, very sane choice. And it would be lovely to see more women exploring home birth as a positive choice for them. Currently in the UK, only 2.3% of all births are at home, even though we know that home is the safest place for a woman to give birth. It's not safest for second-time mums, which Beyonce is, and especially if they're low risk, which Beyonce isn't. Now, it's not the fact that having a high-risk baby at home is dangerous, because actually we don't know. There's no research out there to say to us that having a high-risk baby at home is dangerous, because people can't get research or can't get funding or ethical approval to do that. So it really comes down to your individual choices. I spent a lot of last night going through the NICE guidelines for twins and multiple pregnancies. And it's very clear within that, if you go to the evidence table, that there's very little recent research. So a lot of the research is about 20 years old. So So it's based in the sort of 90s at the start of the 2000, start of the millennium. So it's about 20 years old. And with that, there's only one randomised control trial that I could find around the timing for birth, and when the right time is to give birth. So and with that randomised control trial, there's only 36 women recruited to that. So the numbers that we're talking about are absolutely tiny. One of the issues is it's not just for twin pregnancies, but it's very hard to get information for all pregnancies in terms of really accurate research, because it's so difficult to get ethical approval and funding. So I've got a background in medical ethics and ethical research ethics. I used to work at the research ethics office in the NHS, and then I went to work with the medical ethics at the University of Edinburgh. And so I'm quite aware of what a lot of the issues are. And that is that the funding for research generally comes around funding for different drugs. So within maternity unit, within maternity, the only place to really get money is around various induction methods. And again, that is also for different medical technologies, such as the technology that we use to monitor babies. So when we're looking at evidence about what the right thing to do is, it's very hard to get any really accurate evidence. And on top of that, because the numbers are so low, some of the studies are coming up with they're coming up for the general population, but they're not based on your individual needs. So going back again, or individual health, going back to Beyonce, she's so fit. I was checking out some of her sort of moves this morning while I was just doing a bit of research, and her she can squat like an absolute demon. Those babies are going to fly out of there. She is so fit. She is in prime physical condition that actually having the same care for her as it would be for for a completely different woman with maybe underlying health conditions isn't right. And that's why we really need to look at individual care within the much bigger maternity system. There are a number of complications to do with twins, and I'm not going to deny that. If you've got identical twins, there are issues around the placenta and how the placenta works, and there's a thing called twin-to-twin transfusion. And I don't want to go into that today because it's too complicated for the purposes of this. But looking at non-identical twins, what we're looking at is two babies. So of course, having two babies, you're doubling the chances of things going wrong, because you're looking at two babies. But these things happen in singleton pregnancies too, and the numbers are absolutely tiny. So whilst you're doubling things going wrong and maybe a little bit extra complexity, you're still talking like absolutely tiny numbers. And what we don't really know is what the other underlying health conditions are of the women who've maybe had issues that have presented themselves in the research. We just don't know. So it's really important that you explore it for yourself in terms of what it is that you want to achieve and what it is that you want to do. There was something else that I really liked about what Beyonce said about the birth of Blue Ivy. And she stated that the people present at her birth made the experience that much better. Beyonce expressed that the fears she had about going into labour quickly disappeared. My family and my closest people were there when I gave birth. Everything that scared me just was not present in that room. So I think one of the things that Beyonce can really understand as well, which is something that many of us don't understand, is about the physiological process of birth. And it's a very primal period where we need to feel safe, secure, physically and emotionally safe and secure. something that's often really overlooked, and it's one of the things that's very hard to achieve within the current maternity system. So I just want you just to think about other animals and how other animals or other mammals give birth. And they often give birth in very sort of dark, very sort of controlled, very private surroundings. There aren't people coming in to interfere with them, nobody's giving them vaginal exam, nobody's monitoring their babies. You know, none of these things are happening. But with women, what happens is they go into hospital and suddenly all their privacy goes, their dignity goes, people are in at them, examining them, monitoring them, doing things. Now, there's always times for these situations, and I'm never going to deny that, because I've worked with clients and, you know, we really, really sometimes need that. But for the vast majority of women, they don't need to have all of this monitoring. And all of that does is increases like our fear and anxiety around birth. When you're pregnant with twins, and I know this because my first two were twins, I ended up having a cesarean birth with them because they were both breech and I had a low Lyme placenta, so absolutely medical need to have a cesarean birth. But when you're pregnant with twins, you're in this massive fear and anxiety state. So you go and see the, not midwife, but the consultant at the hospital every 4 weeks. You also see the midwife, you get regular scans, all this information about what's happening with them, how they're growing, etc., etc. All this fear and anxiety, and it's not just coming from the healthcare professionals, it's coming from, you know, your friends and your family. So even my mum, who is absolutely lovely and I love to bits, she was really worried about me, and she kept saying, have you got everything ready? So by 30 weeks, I had my hospital bags packed, I had the car seats, the buggy, the cot, I had absolutely everything just in case something happened. And it was such a shock to get to 38 weeks and nothing had happened. You know, I really expected to have, you know, given birth before then. So I think that's just in terms of starting to understand that sort of fear that we have. So added to that, when we go in and start giving birth in the hospital, which is an unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar people around us, we have got no idea what's happening. We don't even necessarily know how to get there, and then we get there and then we have to like go through triage. What is triage? Go through all of that, speak to people, make decisions about things that we just don't understand. We don't know what the impact is of those decisions. And then, you know, you got to labour ward, you get strapped to a bed, you know end up lying there while they try and find these two different heartbeats. And then there's a number of vaginal exams to determine how much in labour you are, because obviously the vaginal exam is the indicator they use, although there's more and more evidence about saying that cervical dilation is no indicator at all about how much in labour you are. So all these things happen to you, and all that does is really increases that fear and anxiety. And when we feel that fear and anxiety and that feeling of not being safe and not understanding what's happening, we then stop birthing, and everything slows right down. So for Beyonce, having a home birth is a very, very, very sane reaction because she has got complete control. And it's something that I wish more women would explore. This isn't specifically related to twins, this is for all women, but it's actually about taking back that control of their birth. But they can only do that when they understand that that is a choice for them. And that is something that many women just don't, and we are in such a fear culture around birth. But that can only start to change once women start to take back birth, which is something that one of my doula colleagues, Alison Tate, talks about all the time. It's up to women to take back birth, and I do really, really believe that things will only start to change when women take back birth. So, going back to so what was I talking about? So going back to her birth, I think that's absolutely, I can understand exactly why she's doing that, and I think it's great that she is considering that. Obviously most of us can't have £1 million maternity suites installed in our home, so what are our options? Well, we can consider, I know certainly for me, I considered hiring an independent midwife, and that would have been 8 years ago. I don't think there was any practicing in Scotland at the time, but I looked at getting people up from England. I didn't contact them because I wasn't very sure exactly what was going to happen. But you know, it was a fair investment, and it still is. So an independent midwife is, you know, you're talking about £3,500, and they will support you. But it is also your human right to have, under the under laws, it is our human right to have access to privacy, and that means that we can birth at home, that we should be able to birth at home. But one of the biggest issues right now with home birth, and this isn't just for twins, this is for all sorts of slightly different complex issues such as, you know, breech babies, VBACs, etc., is that often there's no staff that are skilled to be able to support you at home. And that's what we're facing more and more. There was recently on a sort of Twins Club Facebook group, somebody basically saying that all twins should be born by caesarean section at 36 weeks. And I feel quite frightened about that, because first of all, you're taking away women's rights around birth choices, but secondly, you're de-skilling the workforce. And I'll get to the point then that there's no midwives who understand how to actually deliver twins and deliver them safely. So we're getting into really, really, really ropey territory. And we also know that for women and for their babies, that they need to go through that birthing process. One of the biggest things that happens, so 50% of babies are born before 37 weeks, but you have 50% who are born after 37 weeks. And one of the issues that we have there is that those women are often pressured to start being induced at 38 weeks. And the NICE guidelines, what they say is there's an increase in fetal death. I'll read it out exactly what it says. It says, increases the risk of fetal death beyond 38 weeks. Women who decline elective birth must be monitored very closely with weekly scans, weekly biophysical profiles, and fortnightly growth scans. So that's one of the other issues, is women, you know, are really, really getting pressured to be induced because it's increased fetal death rate. But what I think we don't really know is how much of that is attributable to maybe what they are doing to women. And there's more and more people are starting to talk about they're doing too much too soon to women, because there's more and more intervention, but we haven't seen a decline in any of the negative outcomes around birth. In fact, what we're actually seeing is more and more adverse outcomes for women, especially with the over-reliance on medical technology. One of the issues with some of the medical technology is it really stops us from being able to birth positively, because we are lying on our backs. We're often having to, especially around twins, they really encourage you to have an epidural so they can move the second baby. With the monitoring, I remember, you know, when I work with clients who've had twins, it's like, yeah, she's able to stand up and move around. But actually, when you're getting monitored with two babies, those monitoring things move all the time. So you actually end up basically being pinned to a bed, because it's so difficult to keep that heart rate going. And it's so difficult when you've got two babies to even pick up the heart rate very easily with intermittent monitoring, just because it's so difficult to pick up both heart rates. So that is a really big issue, is all that monitoring actually has a really big impact on women, because they're not able to get up and birth. We also don't really know the effect of that induction process, and what I would say was with a lot of women, that induction process can be really quite challenging and very, very, very difficult. Not with all women, but with a lot of women. So we don't really know what that impact is. And actually what I was looking at last night was actually studies to try and find out about timing of birth. And I did come across a study that basically said, it was published in BMC, Pregnancy and Childbirth, in 2010. And what it said in here was that that there was no evidence to say that that there's no evidence to basically say that the optimal time for birth for women with uncomplicated multiple pregnancy was at 37 weeks gestation, and that they should be induced. And I will post a link to that study there. So I think what we're finding more and more is that maybe that expectant management might actually be a really positive option for so many women. What about you? This is you and you want to start exploring your own birth. If you're pregnant with twins, how do you start exploring your own birth? And I really think this is like where getting independent support is absolutely vital, like in the form of a doula or an independent midwife, really embedding yourself in like positive birthing culture. There's lots of really positive twin stories online, we just need to read them. There's a great obstetrician in the States again, who I will add him in the comments for this, who also specialises in twin home births. There's more and more people starting to really take back birth. We have to remember that birth has only been happening in the hospital really for the last 50 years. So before that, there'd have been so many women who'd have delivered perfectly, happily and well at home. Things have changed. I don't want you for a moment to think that I don't believe that there's ever a need not to have absolutely no medical intervention at all, because I think sometimes we absolutely do need it, and especially more with twins. But a lot of the issues with twins arise because they're born so early, before 37 weeks, spontaneously, rather than because they're born after 37 weeks. And within that, that's where a lot of the issues come from. We've got low birth weights, much more difficult start to life. Whereas after 37 weeks, a lot of those complications sort of go. But I do think there's added complications in terms of a lot of the induction process, and that's really what I feel quite strongly about. So anyway, let's just wrap up, because I'm just aware that I could go on and on and on and talk and talk and talk. But I just want to sort of say that I think actually Beyonce's decision around having a home birth is a very, very, very sane one. And I think she is doing the absolute right thing for her. And I really love the fact that she's taking ownership of her birth. And I wish her 110% good luck. And I'm a huge fan of her anyway. And I hope it goes really well. And for other women who want to explore their birth options, if you go to the birthandbabyacademy.com and download 101 questions about birth, and that's a really good tool to use to get you to start exploring all your different beliefs and attitudes around birth. Anyway, that's going to be the end of it. This is meant to be a Facebook Live, and due to technology, it didn't work out that way, so here it is like this. Okay, take care, bye!